And I think that's all the introduction out of the way. So I'm going to hand it over to Matt, who's going to start talking about EV charging. Actera has worked a lot with Matt, and as a great friend of the organization and super excellent EV expert. So really excited to hear everything he has to say, and a big thank you to him for being here.
Thanks for having me. So again, my name is Matt Londre. I'm the president of Willow Glen Electric. And you might see EV experts on the side of our truck also. That's kind of a sub brand that we made. And just to help you understand kind of our expertise in home EV charging, our company has installed 5,000 plus home chargers in the greater Silicon Valley area. There's a little map kind of that I made a long time ago, showing a lot of little pinpoints of charger installations that we've done, centered around San Jose, Mountain View, Palo Alto area. And it spreads, of course, sort of the map, but that's kind of showing the heart of our installation location. Next slide. So we are actually working pretty closely also with Qmerit, and they're our new parent company from last year. And we're really excited to be working with Qmerit because they are the preferred installer of charging installations for Chevrolet. You can see all the brands on there. They like to say premier brands trust Qmerit with their customers, from Rivian and Lucid and Polestar to BMW, Volkswagen, Chevy, Bolt, Mercedes, charging companies ranging from NLX and Wallbox and ChargePoint, Electrify America. It's a really fun organization to be working with. So it's pretty fun to see all the new chargers and all the new cars coming out. Next page. So I'm probably preaching to the choir right now with this, but electric vehicle driving has a lot of benefits. I've been driving electric personally myself since about 2017, but I've been driving kind of electric vehicle on and off since about 2014. And there are a lot of amazing benefits of driving electric. First off, it's just a fun, enjoyable driving experience. It's quiet, instant torque, it's convenient, it's safe. And then there is significantly lower maintenance with the vehicle. Like right now with my Model 3, I almost have 100,000 miles on the vehicle, and can say there's been pretty much no maintenance to speak of other than replacing my tires 2 times. And actually I'm getting the 12-volt battery replaced tomorrow. Tesla's gonna drive to my work and replace the 12-volt battery inside my car. And that's literally the only maintenance I've done on my vehicle. So there's significantly fewer moving parts in an electric vehicle to help with that. Another great thing about electric vehicles is there's zero emissions when fueled from renewable energy. Zero emissions when fueled from renewable energy sources. Significantly lower fuel costs as well, depending on kind of where and how you charge, but almost always it's going to be lower cost, if not significantly lower cost compared to gas, especially these days. And then the last benefit, which is pretty fantastic, is HOV access for about 4 years. Now my car no longer qualifies for HOV access, but it is a fantastic reason. Well, not a reason, but it's a fantastic benefit of buying electric. So it helps you save time on your commute. Next slide. And when we're looking at electric vehicle fuel cost, most electric vehicles get approximately 3 miles per kilowatt hour of energy. Now it's helpful to think of electricity almost like gasoline, or I'm sorry, not gasoline, but water, if you will. So fluid. So when I say 3 miles per kilowatt hour, you can almost think 3 miles per gallon of fuel for the vehicle. Now, Palo Alto Utilities rate is about 30 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's only going to cost me about 10 cents a mile driving with Palo Alto. And with PG&E, night speed charging rates being as low as about 24 cents a kilowatt hour. That's only about 8 cents a mile for driving. Typical home solar you can buy power from yourself for as low as 3 cents a mile. So this is a fraction of what the 24 cents per mile typically would be driving a 25 mile per gallon gas car off $6 per gallon gas. So that's a small fraction of the cost. Next slide. Now, EV fuel costs, the EV mileage is affected by the temperature outside. So if you're running an air conditioner, if you're running the heater, it's gonna use a lot more power, or anywhere from a little more power to a lot more power, depending on how fast you're driving. So highway mileage is actually worse for electric vehicles than gas cars. Kind of when you're driving a gas car, you get the most efficiency on the freeway and the lowest efficiency driving around town, while electric vehicles, you get the most efficiency driving around town because of the stop and go nature of that traffic. With electric vehicles, you will have some regeneration of your battery power. Well, on the freeway, you're going significantly faster, but because there's no regeneration with braking, you're getting a little bit less efficiency. EV mileage is also greatly affected by the aerodynamics of the vehicle. So like right there in that picture, that's the Lucid Air. think it's the most efficient or most aerodynamic car on the market today. And Teslas are pretty much right there. So if you're wondering why, like, for example, the Tesla Cybertruck is designed as it is, it's because it's actually, even as kind of ugly as it is, it's actually a significantly aerodynamic vehicle. So even though it's a truck, it's getting great mileage with that. And the last thing that affects your mileage is your lead foot. Electric vehicle driving is very fun. So you're going really fast, and at least when you first get one, you're going to be slamming on the electricity pedal a lot, which lowers your efficiency. But eventually, you'll find out that it's almost more fun trying to be more efficient driving the vehicle, seeing how low you can get your electricity usage. Next slide. So there are 3 levels of charging your electric vehicle. You've heard of level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 would be plugging off a 120 volt receptacle in your house. Most electric vehicles come with a charger that plugs into that, and that charger would provide about just under 1.5 kilowatt hours of energy per hour of charge. So that's going to give you, again, kind of thinking back to the water analogy, plugging into that receptacle right there gets you about 1.5 gallons of energy per hour. Well, if you plug into like the fastest Electrify America charger, that could be upwards of 350 gallons, or the 350 kilowatt charger. So this level 1 charger is not ideal. It actually surprisingly will work. Actually, the first 10 months I had my Model 3, I charged off a 120 volt 20 amp receptacle at my little 4-plex back in the day. And it was pretty slow. I would have loved to have a faster charger, but really it did work for the most part. So if you're concerned about the cost of installing a faster level 2 charger, you can always try using the level 1 that's pretty much should be built into your house, and just plug into that receptacle and see how it works. Charging overnight will get you upwards of 20 to 50 miles of driving range, which technically is more than the average daily commute in the US. So it would work pretty well. And especially with the faster level 3 DC chargers coming out, kind of balancing level 1 charging with level 3 charging could be pretty convenient for a lot of people. But most people would want, next slide, the level 2 electric vehicle charger. This is pretty much any 240 volt charger in your house. Now that right there is a 240 volt 30 amp receptacle, the little picture you see right there. Most of the time, though, we do recommend having a charger to be hardwired into the house. This hardwired charger will provide anywhere from probably 9 miles of driving range per hour of charge, upwards of, gosh, even a 100 amp charger with Teslas, we're providing about 55 to 60 miles of driving range per hour of charge. The fastest level 2s, I really don't think are necessary, because 60 amps is the sweet spot for charging. If you can get a 50 or 60 amp charger in your house, that is fantastic. Next page. So if you're looking at how fast a circuit will charge in your house, if you like math, listen to this slide. If you don't like math, just kind of close your ears for a second. So if you're calculating how much power you'll get out of this, like I was talking about the 60 amp charger, I'm not sure, you can't actually see my mouse on here, but 60 amps at the bottom, you would multiply 60 amps for the circuit size times 240 volts for most single family houses, times an 80% safety factor, and that equals, down to the bottom again, 11.5 kilowatts of power. So that would provide about 11.5 kilowatt hours of energy per hour of charge. And that corresponds to about 22 to 44 miles of driving range per hour of charge. 44 being like a Model Y, Model 3 max efficiency vehicle, 22 being a significantly lower efficiency, like I think that is what you'd be getting with the Rivian R1T truck. And it's approximately that for the Ford F-150 Lightning. It's half the efficiency of the Model 3, but still shockingly good efficiency compared to the gas version of that. Now, the lowest speed you would see was the 15 amp circuit times 240 volts times 80% safety factor would charge your car at about 2.8 kilowatt hours of energy per hour of charge, translating to 5 to 11 miles of driving range per hour of charge. But level 2 chargers are perfect for 99% of charging. Next page. So level 3 chargers are where it gets a little bit crazy. These are the DC chargers running off 400 volts, 480 volts, upwards of some chargers, or some manufacturers are planning on having 800 volt architecture in their vehicles. And these chargers can charge your vehicle at up to 1,000 miles of driving range per hour of charge. If you see that RPH written on the screen, that's a little slang term we've got on there for range per hour. So up to 1,000 plus miles of range per hour. And this can provide an 80% charge in a really large battery vehicle in as low as 20 to 30 minutes. But many older electric vehicles do not support level 3. If you look off to the left side, of the screen, in that little green box, there's 3 images of what the charging cable or the charging plug looks like. The top, which is probably the most, well, actually, let's start at the bottom. That's the Tesla charger. That is the same configuration for level 2, level 1, level 3 charging. That's pretty much the same cable, which is great and works with any Tesla vehicle, but not any non-Tesla vehicle. The SAE combo at the top, that's the CCS combo. If you look at just that top circle right there, that is what a standard level 2 charger will provide for your house. And that's kind of what it would look like. But if you go to a level 3 DC charger, they're going to add that large oval on the bottom for the official CCS plug. And that's what can provide upwards of 350 kilowatt hours of, or not actually 350 kilowatt hours, but 350 kilowatts of power to your vehicle. And in the middle is the kind of being phased out, the CHAdeMO adapter. And that was used on a lot of Nissan Leafs, and it's probably still on some vehicles, but it's not as common as it once was. Now, please do remember, though, that regular level 3 charging can actually decrease the battery life in your vehicle. So if you relied solely on level 3 charging, you're going to kill your battery pretty quickly. So please do your best not to charge exclusively on level 3. But don't be scared about charging on level 3. Actually, I read a study on Tesla charging a couple of years ago where they compared, I think, thousands of Tesla vehicles to see what type of charging provided the best lifespan for the vehicle. They compared chargers that were, or cars that were only charging off level 1, level 2 chargers at houses, cars that were charging on exclusively level 3, and then cars that were charging 90% of the time on level 2, maybe 10% of the time on level 3, and actually found that the 90% level 2, 10% level 3 provided the best efficiency in the vehicle and kind of the longest lifespan on the battery. So the occasional level 3 charger, you can almost think of it like you're exercising your battery, doing a little bit of battery, doing some cardio, getting extra efficient with that. So next page. So there are lots of public charging networks coming up, ranging from ChargePoint, EVgo, Electrify America, and Tesla. Now the Tesla V3 supercharger, you can see on the right side of the page, that is their charger down in Buttonwillow, I believe. I've charged there a bunch of times. It's a fantastic charger, and that charges up to 250 kilowatts peak. So like when I pull up to that car, or when I pull up to that spot, I'm getting 1,000+ miles per hour on a Model 3. For a little bit, it pretty quickly slows down the charging speed, but it's a very fast charger, super convenient for driving from San Francisco down to LA. And Electrify America provides actually up to 350 kilowatts of power, which is amazingly powerful. Not a lot of vehicles can actually handle that much power. Some of the newer ones, I know the Lucid proudly advertises 350 kilowatt power. I think the Taycan, some of the Audis can handle much faster charging speed. Actually, I was speaking with the CEO of Lucid about a year and a half ago at one of their store openings. He happened to be there. And he told me a story of them taking one of their kind of test Lucid Airs out to the very first Electrify America station up in Livermore that had 350 kilowatt power. And they plugged their car into there, saw that they were getting the full speed charge out of it. And within 10 minutes, Electrify America was calling up Lucid saying, "Congratulations, we know you've got the only vehicle on the market that can do this. That has to be your car out there. It's got to be yours." They were pretty proud to have had literally the fastest public charging at Electrify America. So when you're doing road trips in the future, it's going to be 100% doable for you. I drove my Model 3 recently over Memorial Day weekend on a 1,200-mile road trip with a big inefficient cargo box on the top of the vehicle that cut my range by about 30%. And with an infant, with a 4-year-old, and my wife, and a 2-year-old, and everybody in my Model 3, getting significantly lower efficiency than usual, it was fantastic having public charging. Totally doable. So if I can do it, you can too. Works in town, work on road trips. Next page. So that Electrify America, sometimes it's kind of hard to understand what this power actually means. You hear about 1.5 kilowatts, you hear 250 kilowatt, you're 350 kilowatt, and like it just doesn't make sense. So to better explain what this is, 350 kilowatts equals 350,000 kilo, meaning 1,000 watts, 350,000 watts of power. And if you remember those old super inefficient light bulbs that some people would use in the easy bake ovens because they got so hot, but honestly better at making heat than making light, 350,000 watts plugged into your car off that Electrify America station could power 5,833 60-watt light bulbs. Just think about that. That's how much power you're pushing through that one single cable into your vehicle. It's amazingly powerful. Next page. So for home charging, one of the things you're going to want to think about for what type of charger you put in is how many miles you plan to drive per day. Now, the average daily commute is about a 30-mile round trip commute. And with PG&E's electric vehicle rate of about 24 cents per kilowatt hour, that would require about 10 kilowatt hours of energy, which would take you about just under 7 hours to charge on that simple 120 volt level 1 charger. Or you could get that as quickly as an hour and a half on a fast level 2 charger. And that's going to cost you just about $2.40, $2.40 to charge your car, which is significantly less than that, $6+ per gallon that you'd be paying for that day on gas. For a 200-mile trip on this, you'd require upwards of 6 to 7 kilowatt hours of energy. That would take, so if you are planning to drive further distances, and I've talked to some people where they're traveling salespeople. I talked with one guy who said he was a surgeon, and he never knew when he was getting called into the hospital. He lived a little bit further out, and he wanted to make sure that when he was home, he was charging as fast as possible. And for him, it made sense. Actually, I talked with another stay-at-home mom who said that she drove literally 200+ miles a day. Her kids from piano to swimming to all the activities, and she said, I need to charge as much as I can. So for her, a level 1 charger would not have worked. You could see charging 200-mile trip on level 1 would take you close to 2 full days. So if you're doing 200 miles regularly, I would try to stay away from level 1. But you could charge that 200-mile daily trip on a level 2 charger in just about 9.5 hours, only costing you $16. So level 2 is the way to go if you're planning to drive a bit more. Next slide. So for installing a home level 2 charger, that's what our company's been focusing on, like a laser for the past, almost 10 years. And we've learned a lot over the years, a lot early on to make for what made the difference between installing an electric vehicle charger and another just generic 50 amp circuit in a house. There's actually a lot of specialization that goes into making sure that these chargers are being installed properly. And the first and most important thing that you're going to want to do in a house, or that the electrician should do, not you in particular, but make sure your electrician is doing this, is they should use a national electrical code approved electrical load calculation to determine a safe charging speed for the house. Now, if your house has a 200 amp panel, pretty good chance that you can get in a good 50, 60 amp charger pretty easily. But I have done a number of load calculations for houses with 200 amp panels that are larger, that have multiple air conditioners and an electric oven, electric stovetop. When these houses that are going towards full electrification, the more power that you potentially are using in there, the smaller your electric vehicle chargers should be, depending on your electrical panel size. So we want to make sure that we're designing it properly. Now, when you're thinking about where you should be installing your charger, ideally it would be closer to the car's charge port. You can see that's a picture on the slide right there of a Tesla, where Tesla would recommend putting the charger for charging their car. They don't recommend putting it on the front drive or the front passenger corner, because that's on the exact opposite side of where you'd be charging. Typically, we'd actually recommend putting it right near the rear driver's tire to make it as easy and convenient as possible. Even just a couple of seconds of walking cable around the backside of the car might sound silly and petty, but any repetitive motion like that just gets old after a while. So the more convenient you can make it, the happier you'll be on a daily basis to step out and just plug the car right in. Now the electrician will install wiring and conduit, and we also, or it's not we, but every city also requires a city permit and inspection to be done for electric vehicle charging. That's one thing that a lot of people don't really pay attention to too close, including a lot of contractors. Some contractors will tell you it's optional, it's not necessary. Honestly, it really is. I don't want to scare you with this stuff because it's, I don't like selling based on scaring people, but there's a lot that can go wrong in a home electrical system. And I have seen a number of electrical systems with poorly installed electric vehicle chargers where bad things happen. And I don't want that to happen to your house. Again, you don't have to use our company. I'm just telling you what a competent contractor should do. And the city permit inspection are often, honestly, not an inexpensive part of the job. Sometimes it's harder to pull the permit and do the inspection than it is installing the charger, but it is 100% necessary to make sure that your home is safe, to make sure that if anything was to go wrong in there, that that at least you've got that baseline knowledge that the charger was installed properly. Next page. So for charging speeds in the house, I'll try to go a little bit quicker. It looks like there's not too much more time before the next speaker, but most of the installations that we've done kind of range in the 40, 50, 60 amp size. A lot of people are looking, once upon a time, Tesla did sell 100 amp chargers and they actually dropped that option. Thankfully, I was actually very happy when they lowered their maximum charging speed to 60 amps, because a lot of people were asking for 100 amp circuits, and most houses cannot actually handle a full 100 amp circuit. But there's still plenty of houses you could see as greater than 10% where they're getting 15 to 30 amp circuits, which are still more than fast enough for most people's charging. So just calculate the electrical load of what the charger can, of what your house can handle, and that's what you can get. Next page. So there are lots of charging options available. You've got universal chargers. They can charge anything, from ChargePoint, Wallbox, Bosch, Flow, or the carb-branded ones. We've installed tons of Rivian chargers recently. Now a Tesla charger can charge from one of those universal chargers. Every Tesla comes with a small little 4-inch adapter that plugs into the J1772 plug and plugs that into your car. So if you've got a Tesla, but you think you might, you've got friends with a Bolt, and you think you might want to charge your mom's Audi when she comes in, I would recommend getting a universal charger installed as opposed to a Tesla charger. Now, 25-foot cables are also the longest length allowed by the National Electrical Code. So if you're hoping at something longer than 25 feet, it's not going to happen. They don't allow that. There are companies that make adapters that can extend them, but they're not UL approved. They're not recommended. So try to keep your parking within 25 feet of the charger location. Next page. So for average cost for installing a level 2 charger at a home, for this, again, these are our costs, and I found, I hear from our customers where they're getting multiple bids, and oftentimes we're not the lowest price, but we're also not the highest price. We try to be kind of right in the middle of that. And in 2021, the last time I did an analysis on this, I found that our average installation cost was about $3,200, and that might sound high. It is a little bit on the higher end. That ranges, all the numbers built into that $3,200 range as low as $890 and as high as $19,950. But most of those installations, like that $19,000 project right there, that was for a significant home electrical infrastructure upgrade to make it so that they could handle a fast electric vehicle charger. And so the actual EV charger installation was probably closer to $2,000 out of that $20,000. But still, including panel upgrades, we oftentimes provide the electric vehicle charger, which those cost anywhere from $500 to $700. We're buying those literally by the pallet, 10 to 40 at a time, so that we can make this as easy and simple as possible for our customers. So that $3,200 includes permits, panels, automatic load management devices, panel upgrades, smart panels from Span and Schneider. There's a lot that go into these projects. Next page. So if you think about it, $3,200 is an investment in the environment, your convenience, and lower transportation costs. And I like to compare this to installing a gas pump in your house. How much would you pay today if you're driving gas and you're looking at electric vehicles as primarily being like just a financially beneficial way to drive, which it is, and it's so much more than just that. But how much would you pay to have a private gas pump installed in your house that would give you gas for 70% off? Rather than paying, I guess at the time it's $4.40 a gallon. But imagine instead of paying $6 a gallon, if you could get gas for $1.50 a gallon at your house, how much would you pay for that private tank or that private pump? I would think $3,200 would be like the cheapest possible thing that you would do to invest in lower energy costs for that. So kind of nice to compare to that. Next page. Now, there are rebates and grants to offset costs. Once upon a time, there was a federal tax credit. I kept this on there because I still have hope that Congress will get their act together and pass the federal tax credit to get 30% off of installation costs up to $1,000. Lots of cities like Palo Alto and Santa Clara also have grants and rebates for installations, anywhere from $8,000 for nonprofit and multifamily dwelling installations in Palo Alto. Single family houses in Santa Clara can get $550 to $1,000 back. So there are a lot of grants out there for these. Next page. Okay, City of Alameda, actually back one. Okay, so just some various other income qualifying. There are some programs that offer upwards of $2,000 off installation costs. Next page. So PG&E and Palo Alto, I'm trying to talk too much about rate plans because they're super confusing. And they change all the time. And I just got emails today saying PG&E is changing rates again. But they do have time of use rate plans. So with PG&E on my for charging my vehicle, I get the best rates after midnight. So I program my car to charge at midnight, and usually it's finished charging by 3-4 in the morning, even when I'm driving further. So typically you'll be charging at night. Palo Alto does not have tiered price, or they have tiered pricing. They don't have time of use pricing, I don't believe. But their prices, if you live in Palo Alto, congratulations, you've got super cheap gas over there, or super cheap electricity, as low as 14 cents a kilowatt hour for tier 1, and tier 2, their expensive rate is 19 cents a kilowatt hour. So pretty dang low, even lower than PG&E. Next page. Let's skip this page. we're not talking about corporate charging. Now, options for apartment dwellers. If you live in an apartment or a HOA place, the nice thing about the law is that they say that landlords must approve a request to install a charger in a multifamily dwelling, even if it goes against the architectural guidelines for the place. Now, you are required to pay for all costs, it says, but we've had some HOAs in the past where they say the installation could not be done until we showed them the law and where it said that are required to say that, and our customers were pretty thrilled at finding the caveat to get that done. So there are lots of options for apartments and townhomes and big condo buildings. Next page. I think I saw somebody's question: what's the cost to install a load management system for EV charging stations and multi-housing complex? That greatly varies for this. I really couldn't tell you. It varies so greatly for those. But for for apartments and townhomes and condos, there are some terrific solutions like these smart outlets. The one in the middle is my latest favorite spot. It's the Go Power EV plug. There's a 240 volt outlet in the center with two 120 volt 20 amp receptacles on the side. And for these, we're actually, I think I actually saw Mike on there. Hey, Mike, he works with Go Power EV. And it's a fantastic solution. They actually pay for the installation up front, and then they have a kind of a monthly charge after that. So if you're interested in a lower cost solution for your place, they designed these to be installed basically every other parking space in upwards of a 100 to 200 amp parking space building. So they can just fill up every space in the building, let everybody have. Now, this is not a fast charging option for the house, but it is a more than adequate option for a lot of places out there. So they've designed this with equity in mind to try to make this as affordable and reasonable as possible for charging in houses. There's the Plugzio next to it, so very similar to Go Power EV, where you can make an account with that QR code and then plug in, and they handle billing and charging. And there's other options, orange outlet and some other ones as well. There's also mobile charging, kind of a sillier solution. The company charges the battery and they use that battery to charge your vehicle. But if you lose power somewhere, there are companies that will come to you with a mobile battery pack to recharge your car. Next page. And again, the charging networks that we discussed, which by America, Tesla, ChargePoint, EVgo, and lots of other ones. EV Connect, there's so many out there. I think one of the big things actually with charging networks, for the software for these, there's some really cool things coming out soon. What I'm really looking forward to is what's called plug and charge from these vehicles. So like the Tesla charger that you see right there, when I pull my Model 3 up to a Tesla supercharging station, there's no screen on it. I just back my car and plug it in. There's no swiping of credit cards. There's no logging in of passwords or anything. It just knows my vehicle. I've got payment attached to my vehicle, and Tesla handles everything from there. And most of the charging networks, you see like the EVgo, the ChargePoint, Electric America, screens on there, there's credit card swipers, and it's a much less convenient way to charge. But soon there's going to be today there is a more convenient standard called plug and charge that designs, it's basically just like the Tesla, where your vehicle will have your payment information built into that. And when you pull up to an Electrify America charging station, you can plug the Electrify America charger into your car. I think it's working today with the F-150 Lightning. You just plug it in, it knows who you are, and it charges you based on what you have in your car. And that's going to revolutionize. Honestly, it sounds simple, but I think it's going to revolutionize public charging for non-Tesla vehicles. And I'm super excited to see that. Next page. There are car and charger apps. If you remember nothing else from this slide, download the PlugShare app. PlugShare is super helpful for finding where chargers are located, how fast they are, how reliable they are. It's almost like a car charging social network where you can see how reliable the local chargers are. So please download PlugShare. They're fantastic. Next page. For using public charging networks, most electric vehicles and the specific apps like from Electrify America will show nearby compatible chargers. Now, please, if you're going on a road trip, configure your car, your app, and your payments options before you need that first charge. Like I said, future tech will allow Tesla-like public charging, but it's not quite here yet. So when you're looking at what charging networks are on your way, make sure you've got your Electrify America and your ChargePoint and your Go EV EV networks all set up. That you've got your phones, your charging passes, your RFID passes. It will make charging significantly simpler. And depending on where you are in California, we can charge by the kilowatt hour, and in other states they're not allowed to. So I actually charge by time, which is not as ideal of a charging option. And please be aware that there are also lots of public chargers that will not work properly. We're working on making those work better, but don't assume it's going to work. I think with that PlugShare app, we'll show you chargers that are working and are not working, but do a little bit of research before you do a long road trip. I'm not sure if you read, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago of a newbie electric vehicle driver who thought it'd be fun to rent an electric vehicle and drive from New Orleans to Chicago and back on a road that she'd never driven on before, never really having experience with public charging or trying to do a little bit of research ahead of time. And she had a miserable experience on this road trip and said, it's not ready yet. While most other people are replying in the comments saying, you have no idea what you're talking about, don't judge it based on your first time doing this. But it does take a little bit of experience before really like long distance driving is really convenient with an electric vehicle. I almost consider it almost like driving a horse back in the day. Riding your horse around town is really easy. You know right where to feed it, but when you're going a longer distance, you kind of have to be a little more in tune with your transportation, see how much power it's using, see how much energy the horse is needing. You need to make sure you know where the feedlots are ahead of time. So I think it's fun. It's just a different experience on those long distance drives. Next page. Charging compatibility. Remember, if you've got a Tesla, you can charge up Tesla and almost anything else. If you've got the DC fast, if you've got a non-Tesla, you can't charge up the Tesla network, but you can charge off pretty much any of the other ones that I've mentioned. And DC fast chargers are typically for the newer vehicles, having the CCS built into it. Next page. Future capabilities. I'm really excited about vehicle to grid charging. This is where you can use your vehicle to power your house in the event of a blackout. The F-150 Lightning has this built into it. Lucid has the ability to output 100 amps of power, which is amazing, and cannot wait to see it working live. But there's a lot of work to be done with the regulations and the regulatory environment surrounding vehicle to grid charging. We're still figuring that out, but we're actively working on a weekly basis with these companies, trying to find the best way to get this stuff working. That's it. So other things coming out in the future, pickup trucks. We're pretty excited for that. Next page. This is a picture that I took myself driving to work a couple of months back. I'm really excited about having more vehicle options. Again, I drive a Model 3 and I'm thrilled with this, but I'm just as excited to see all the additional vehicles coming out. I looked in my rearview mirror one morning and I looked and I saw the gas cars, eating our dust way in the back of it, but I saw a Polestar, Rivian R1T, and a Model X in my rearview mirror. And another time recently, I was driving down Meridian Avenue in San Jose, and at one perfect moment in time, driving down the road, there were 4 vehicles, 2 going this way, 2 coming this way, and it was my Model 3, it was a Volkswagen ID4, it was a Mustang Mach-E from Ford, and it was the Rivian R1T. So we had 4 fantastic electric vehicles from 4 totally different manufacturers, all next to each other, and I'm so excited to see the true competition coming out. So now you've got a ton of options for electric vehicle driving. Next page. So conclusion, electric vehicles are no longer a gimmick, and that's, you already believe that if you're here. Benefits are substantial, inconveniences are rapidly disappearing. Public DC charging for long distance road trips, knowing you can drive from San Francisco to Disneyland, they exist today, and you can do it today. So go ahead and get one. Next page. I think that goes to questions from there. And there's a picture of my son driving his little miniature Tesla that Tesla sent us for making enough referrals.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. We're going to do a couple of questions and then switch to Philip, and we'll come back and get to the rest of the questions at the end. So sorry to anyone if we don't get to your question right away. So first one is just, do the EV charges in public tell you if they're level 2 or level 3? Like, is that very clear, or do you need to use the app for that, or how does that work?
The app will definitely tell you that, but it is pretty clear, and you'll get used to seeing what type of charging cable is on the end of it. If it's the standard J1772, which is the small little kind of circular one, that's going to be just a standard level 2 charger, while the level 3s have a significantly larger handle built into it for plugging in.
Great. Then, so there are these load share systems where you can use a dryer outlet that also can charge your EV, right? And you're sort of sharing the load at different times. Can you talk just a little bit about how that works? And is that something that's done on the electrical panel or on the outlet, and what needs to go into that?
I am not. So I love automatic load management devices. They're starting to come out. They've been out for a couple of years now. Our favorite one is from DCC. It's the demand charge controller, and it tracks the electrical usage of the entire house. And historically, if somebody who came to us with a 100 amp electrical panel using 99 amps out of that, we'd say, there's nothing we can do here. I'm sorry. I wish we could. Today, though, with the demand charge controller, this little DCC device tracks the electrical usage of that panel, and assuming that the electrical usage is low enough, it allows the electric vehicle charger to have power. And then that works well. It's convenient. You don't have to think about anything with that. Now, you did mention the dryer, like the dryer buddy and things like that. You know, now I am an electrician, so obviously I've got that slight bias. I remember seeing one website where they said, you know, a company like that would say no electrician needed. And I actually talked to one of those companies early on when they were doing some design for it. I'm like, I just am not a big fan of the way that it's being marketed at this point. And that honestly goes back to the fact that around the Bay Area, a lot of our houses are built in, you know, I grew up in a house built 1926 with an electric dryer. We work in a lot of houses built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, where the house was built with a 100 amp electrical system with old wiring, an old NEMA 1030 receptacle for drying clothes, you know, that might be in a relatively convenient location for charging if it's in the garage, but that wiring is 50 plus years old. The circuit breaker powering that is 50 plus years old. The old brittle receptacle that this, you know, the dryer device wants to plug into is 50 plus years old, is weakened over years of usage with drying, and it is not, you know, it was not just, it's working great for electric or for drying your clothes, but not great for pumping out 24 continuous amps all night long for charging your car. I think there's just a lot that can go wrong with that. If you're designing the system from scratch, like you're running a 30 amp circuit and you want to share with a brand new dryer receptacle and your electric vehicle charger, fantastic. That is a perfect device for that. If you did the load calculation and you remove the dryer from the system, and you see that there is enough power for that, but I was actually showing somebody earlier today. I ran a little test showing, okay, now let's assume an 1,800 square foot house with a 50 amp oven range combo. They installed a 40 amp air conditioner back in the, you know, 15 years ago. They've got their 30 amp dryer, miscellaneous other items. And I think our load calc on there, after we took out the dryer, assuming that we're starting to use that dryer receptacle for charging, pushed the potential electrical load of the house to about 110 or 120 amps out of the electrical system. Technically, there wasn't enough capacity for the dryer in there because the dryer is not considered a continuous usage appliance. You know, it does not actually use that much power compared to the 30 amp circuit for that. While the 30 amp electric vehicle charge is using 24 continuous amps. It is, and gosh, well, maybe next time I have this presentation, I'll try to get, we've got an amp probe device that can track the actual, you know, second by second power usage of a charger versus a dryer to show the comparison with that. I've done that with a 50 amp charger in the past, and a 50 amp electric vehicle charger uses 40 amps continuous on there. A 50 amp oven uses a small fraction. A 50 amp air conditioner uses about 40% of the capacity of the circuit. And long story short is, be careful with those load sharing devices. We did use one recently at a customer's house in Palo Alto, where it was going to be next to impossible to get power from his main panel or sub panel to the garage. But we discovered that he had a 30 amp air conditioner on the side of his garage. So we're not using the plug for that. We tapped into the 30 amp circuit. We moved his air conditioning disconnect off to the side, put in a box from Simple Switch on the wall. And that Simple Switch box makes it so that the air conditioner right there will always have power, but as soon as it's using less than 20 watts of power, it will allow the electric vehicle to have power. And because typically the EV charger is being used after midnight, you know, when the air conditioner is not in use, that allows you to safely install a 30 amp charger off of that. But we can't, you know, we're never just going to tap into that and just assume it's going to work all right. I actually went to one customer's house once upon a time. We ended up installing a SPAN smart panel for him because he had underground power. Long story short, it would have been a nightmare to install a true service upgrade for his house. But with his house, I realized that he had a fast electric vehicle charger pre-installed before we got there and an air conditioner. And I said, wait, what's happening here? He said, oh yeah, the previous owner told me, make sure you don't run the electric vehicle or the air conditioner at the same time. Bad things can happen. But just be smart about it. You know, please don't just be smart about it. We want to make sure that, you know, your system is designed properly so you don't have to think about it. You can be as dumb as you want with it and be 100% safe. So that's my probably too long of a spiel for that. But just watch out for those systems out there.
Great, appreciate all the detail. We'll get back to the rest of the questions. There are a couple of questions specifically about policy that I'm excited to tackle later. But for now, I want to pass it over to Philip from PCE, from Peninsula Clean Energy, to talk about their programs. So yeah, thanks so much for being here, Philip, and go ahead.
You bet. Leo, give me a thumbs up if you see.
I see and hear you.
All right, great. Awesome. Thanks for having me, everybody. My name is Philip Kovernick. I'm the EV Programs Manager at Peninsula Clean Energy. I also personally drive a Bolt EV and use level 1 at my 120-year-old house, 115-year-old house. So if folks have questions about that, I'm also happy to talk about that. But today I'm going to be talking about Peninsula Clean Energy and the various different types of EV and EV charging programs that you should be aware of. So quick about Peninsula Clean Energy. If you haven't heard of us, if you live in San Mateo County, you're almost surely one of our customers. We were launched in 2016 with a vision to build a sustainable world with clean energy for everyone. We're a government agency, so we report to our board of directors, and as a community serving organization, we invest in community benefits. And our goal really here is greenhouse gas emissions reduction. We're doing that through building electrification programs rather, EV programs, and resiliency programs. And another note, we are also cheaper than PG&E. So we've saved customers $18 million annually by providing a discount off of PG&E's rates to our customers. And again, if you live in San Mateo County, you're already getting your energy from us. Almost surely, we serve nearly everybody. Okay. So one of the programs that we are providing, and this is really our major effort, it's a $24 million program over a few years. And that's the investments that we're making in EV charging. And we know how important it is for folks to have access to EV charging. And that's why really our flagship program is doing this. And we're focusing really on multi-family properties, apartment buildings and condo buildings, because that's a pretty tough market. You know, it's the adoption of EVs in apartments and condos is lagging behind folks who live in single family homes and can plug their car in just like a toaster or upgrade their outlet to a more powerful outlet. So we're focusing a lot of our efforts on that. And so the support we provide is for the owners of those properties, because we're looking to get into contact with property owners so we can design systems for them that install many charging stations all at once. We're trying to expand access to as many people as possible. So in this program, we provide free, robust technical assistance that includes site designs, plans, load evaluations. If someone comes to us and says, we're thinking of putting in a couple of chargers, we say, great, how about we do 12? And we do that through our technical assistance, and load management is certainly a big part of that, as the last speaker talked about. And of course, we provide rebates for these property owners to install multifamily. The rebates are $2,000 to $2,500 for level 1 charging, depending on what exactly type of multifamily property it is, and $4,500 per level 2 port. And that's by the port. So if you're putting in a dual, like one of those that has 2 connectors, like this photo on the right here, you would get $9,000 for doing so. So really generous incentives and a lot of help for folks to install charging at multifamily. So please, if you are in contact with your property owner, we would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from the property owner. The website there, penicleanenergy.com/EVready. You can find all the details on this robust program. Now, for folks who are personally interested in going electric and getting an EV, one of the programs that we're offering for folks, and this is a really fun one, you can get a $200 from us to go rent out and try an EV for the weekend. So if there's a lot of apps out there, like Turo is a big one, where you can rent, it's sort of like Zipcar, but it's peer-to-peer. You're renting a car from someone in your community. And if they have an electric car, you want to just try it out, or we're not limited to that. You can do it from Enterprise if you can get a hold of one of their very few EVs. We'll give you a $200 rebate for trying it out. So really great way to get in an EV behind the wheel, take it out for a day or two and see how it fits into your life. And finally, once you've made that decision that you want to buy an EV, great, congratulations. We have a rebate to help you do that, and that's for used electric cars. So everybody in San Mateo County, anyone in our territory can get between $700 and $1,000 for purchasing a plug-in hybrid to an all-electric car. And for folks who are income qualifying, we provide significantly more money to help folks be able to afford used EVs. And the website there is pencleanenergy.com/used EV. And that's it for me. Thank you for having me. Happy to chat EVs, charging, whatever anybody wants.
If anyone has any questions specifically for Philip, feel free to throw them in the chat. And thank you so much for that, Philip. I'm going to throw one of the questions we got before at you, though, which is about utility upgrades. So if someone is trying to upgrade their panel to get an EV charger, and they find from PG&E that there's some like problem with the transformer, they actually can't upgrade their panel or increase the capacity. Is that something that PG&E has to upgrade, or is that something that they might have to pay for? Like, how does the interaction between the panel upgrades and the actual transformer level utility distribution work out?
That is an excellent question that would take probably hours to fully explain. In the concept, I'll just very, very briefly, for commercial sites like multifamily, we do provide an added incentive on top of our purport incentive to help people when they do need to make panel upgrades. We also provide really thought out technical assistance to help people avoid panel upgrades whenever possible. Matt before me mentioned load management systems. That's really where they shine, is helping people avoid new service. So if you have this much power left, you can use these systems to help spread them out to many people. That's a big part of what we get into the details on. For folks at their own home, we also really try to, well, we don't focus on single family homes, but my general advice would be, if you can at all possible, try to avoid a panel upgrade. You will save yourself a lot of headache. It's a big process to go from 200 amps to 300 amps or 100 amps to 200 amps. If you're trying to get more power, for many folks, it may be inevitable, depending on your situation and your house, and you have to do it anyway, especially if you're going through an electrification roadmap. But if you can avoid it, if you can really think about how much power you really need on a day-to-day basis and get the right charger for you, instead of just a huge one, if you don't drive that much, then you would save yourself a lot of headache in doing so. So that's highly recommended.
Great, thanks for that.
But there are complicated rules if people want to get into CPUC regulations on panel upgrades and who pays for what and new Rule 29 regs. I'm happy to nerd out about that too.
And apologize if there's any PG&E employees here, but my rule of thumb is try to interact with them as little as possible. So
that works.
Yeah, but if you have overhead power, like often one of the reasons why we make panel upgrade recommendations is because the house was built 60 years ago and has a original panel to the house. And really, even if I was there replacing a light bulb, I would say this old panel really should be replaced. If your panel says Zinsco or Federal Pacific Electric, or there's a bulldog stamped into the panel, those are panels that really should be replaced for safety for a house. And so if you've got overhead power to the house, that's actually a relatively standard and simple panel upgrade. We can do those in 6 weeks, and that's because PG&E is pretty quick with those. If you have underground power to the house, you'd be better off moving. That's going to take you 12 to 18 months, pay utility a couple $1,000s just to kind of get in line for that upgrade. And that's like Philip was saying, where the load management devices really, really shine. The span panels, the load management devices, the simple switch, DCC, they become your friend with underground power.
If you've avoided upgrading your knob and tube wiring, now is the time.
So another kind of big picture policy question that maybe neither of you have an answer for, but we have a great question about just what the sort of legislative effort there is to make multifamily charging accessible. This is actually something that other people at Actera work on a lot. So JJ and Linda, who work a lot more on EV policy and EV outreach for Actera, spend a lot of time thinking about this. So if you're interested in policy work for EV multifamily housing access, I think getting involved with Actera's policy stuff is a great thing to do. But I'm curious if either of you have thoughts about where the sort of legislation is moving on incentivizing or mandating, access to EV charging in multifamily buildings, and if there's anything people should, keep aware of or advocate for. Fine if neither of you have a clear answer to this, but I think it's a good question.
Yeah, do you mind if I start on that one, Matt?
Please.
So yes, there is legislation right now. Leo, I think you're referring to 1482, which is in the assembly now, which would be mandates on new construction. We're following that for sure. We also spend a lot of our effort on local reach codes. So these are at the city level, and those have been around for a few years now. We're working on doing an update. But if you live in a city, certainly in San Mateo County, we will be working with your city over the next few months to renew or readopt your reach codes. And these codes are basically local city-based codes that go beyond the state requirements. They say the state's not moving fast enough, so we're going to adopt that at the local level. They include building electrification measures, so all electric new construction codes, and then also EV codes. And the big component of the EV codes are that they're 100% access for charging at new construction for new multifamily. So no retrofits later, no doing anything later. It's 100% access at the time of new construction. So that's a big important one that folks should be aware of, because cities will be adopting or readopting these codes over the next few months.
That's about it. Not much to add.
Great.
Good.
Yeah, I think that one of the big challenges that Actera is thinking a lot about is what the right regulations are for existing buildings, right, where the installs might be more complicated, or the authority of the cities is more complicated. But definitely something that lots of cities are testing out new codes, and there's lots of movement on it.
Thankfully for that, there's a lot of money coming soon with PG&E. We've got some related contractors down south. Southern California Edison and San Diego Gas have like literally $200 to $500 million to spend down there for putting charging stations in equitable locations like multifamily and public charging. And that's coming to PG&E territory starting January 1st of next year, that we're really excited about, because we've got a lot of buildings out there that we'd love to help wire up. And they've got, I think, something like $250 million ready to go for helping wire up buildings in lower income areas.
And we're also toying with existing buildings in our reach codes. We know we'll have to go there, or at least look at it. So we're in our model code, which people can look at bayareareachcodes.org, by the way. Our model code includes a trigger for the first time. So if you've built a new multifamily building, for instance, in the last 6 years, the state has required you to put in EV capable spaces, which is just conduit that ends in a box. There's nothing for you to plug into. So it's not really a charging thing, it's just a tube. But
I've seen lots of spots like that. They are not helpful.
Not helpful, right? So our code, if adopted, if cities adopt this provision in the code, will require these property owners to turn that into a place to plug in. So running the wire, putting an outlet at the end of that. And that would be kind of our first effort into requiring existing buildings to do something in the codes.
Great, thanks for those answers. Another question, more specific. So Matt, you mentioned the apps that you can use to like find chargers and kind of trip. If you want to also figure out like, okay, how much time is it going to take me to charge? How far should I be able to expect to go on my load? Like calculating the trip beyond just where the chargers are, but figuring out timing and figuring out how far you can get. Do those apps satisfy that, or where can you figure out information like that?
With my Tesla, it just does it. I go to my screen, I say, get me directions to Disneyland, and it tells me where to charge, how long to charge for, and super convenient that way. But I know a lot of other electric vehicles these days with the bigger screens in there are starting to do that as well. So I would rely on the vehicle, because the vehicle knows the efficiency. It knows kind of where the chargers are that work with your vehicle. But again, don't take what the vehicle says, perfectly. Sometimes, like if I'm driving from my house and I live in Morgan Hill, I'm driving down to my sister's in Thousand Oaks, it tells me to stop and charge at Costa de Fruta. And I know Costa de Fruta is way too early to stop for charging. Your car actually would charge a lot faster the lower the battery level is in there. So I try to make it as far as I possibly can, sometimes uncomfortably so, but it makes it a little more fun on the drive. So don't listen to your GPS 100%. Listen to it 100% when you're first starting out, but once you get experienced, then have fun.
Great. Okay, I think that's all the questions. If I missed you, or if anyone has any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'm going to share screen again just to talk about some of our upcoming events and a couple of other things. So just a few more upcoming events at Actera. We have a kind of light month coming up, but we have another plant-based induction cooking class. We do these twice a month. These are great. So if you're curious about induction cooking, another big part of home electrification, you can check that out. We have this weekend an EV ride and drive in Sunnyvale if you want to come and check out a bunch of people who have EVs and you can ride along or drive them. Then we have a sort of young professionals networking group that is all about sustainability that is hosting a beach cleanup on next Saturday on June 25th. So if anyone wants to go out to the beach and do some cleanups, I encourage you to do that. And you can find out about all of these things and sign up at actera.org/events. One other thing I'd like to pass on and announce is just we're trying to do this big push to let people know about this Power Saver Rewards program. So we're coming up in the summer. It's going to get really hot. There's going to be potentially like fire days and days power outages and brownouts due to high usage of AC and various things. So we're encouraging people to look at powersaverrewards.org, which will sign you up to get these flex alerts, which will tell you when there's some time when we're trying to get everybody to conserve energy. And you can save some money on your bill, I believe, anywhere in California. Some municipal utilities maybe aren't participating, but I think it's almost everybody. Definitely PG&E and CCA territory has this. So very much encourage you to go check out powersaverrewards.org and find out how you can help prevent brownouts and get some discounts on your utility bill if there are these high usage days. Other than that, that's about it. Thank you so much for being here. I think we don't, oh, thanks Philip for getting that one other question in the chat. Thank you so much to Philip and Nat for everything. Super informative, and thank you so much for answering all the questions. And thank you to everyone else for coming. We'll send out the recording afterwards if you want to come back and check anything. And Actera and both of our speakers are definitely happy to take questions over the contact information they gave. So hopefully we'll hear from you in the future. Have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Good night.